Welcome to Viking Spotlight. This is a podcast about people, events, and projects in the North Canton School District. I'm your host, Jeff Wendorf. Today we will discuss school safety with an interview with School Resource Officer Phil Taylor. We appreciate our school resource officers and love having them in the buildings each day, and we're excited that Officer Taylor is here to help share some insights on how we approach safety in the schools and in each building. Officer Taylor graduated from Hoover in 1985. He became a police officer in 2000 and served the city of North Canton for 14 years. He's been a school resource officer, or SRO, as the short initials are, for 4 years. He's certified as an ALICE instructor and a crime prevention officer. He's undergone training in school-based threat, risk, and vulnerability assessment, along with numerous other related trainings. Officer Taylor, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so we're pretty informal here. We'll just talk through a few questions and guide some main topics. And could you tell us about the role of an SRO in schools?
Our role as an SRO in our school is to make a connection with our kids, first and foremost, to show them that a lot of times if you're out walking around, we get a lot of parents that will say, if we're in the mall or something like that, and they see us, you better behave, or, we're going to talk to them. And that's not what we like to hear. But here in the school, we like to talk with our kids, get to know them. We have roughly about 4,300 kids in our district. So getting to know 4,300 kids is kind of difficult. It's taken us several years to do so between myself and Officer Ataya and Officer Kakulis. But when we do talk to them, if they're having problems, we found that we're able to give them some advice, maybe give them some options about what they may want to do in the future, or if they're in a crisis situation, maybe what some of their options are to keep them from that situation getting worse. And then we also talk to them about our laws that we enforce as police officers, both out on the road and here in the schools.
Appreciate that. So you're known here as a school resource officer. Mm-hmm. You're known on the street as a police officer.
Yes.
And so that it kind of gives a different connotation. And I think the term resource is certainly what you are to our kids and our staff and our district to serve in those roles during school hours and at school events as a resource for, like you said, forming relationships, being an advisor, helping kids work through some things, but also as a legal law enforcement officer as well for safety issues. So those two major components as part of the school resource officers is critical for us and for our kids, and we appreciate that. You've received training that prepares you for the role of an SRO. What kind of training does that include?
Well, they send us to a class. It's specifically for our SROs. Several years ago, when we had numerous school shootings and things of that nature, the state of Ohio and many of the other states too really pumped up to get SROs into schools, and school districts, they saw that it was a good thing to have them in there because it does give a realm of safety. We bring safety to the school just as a presence. A lot of the time, just as you said, between an SRO and a police officer, the one thing we're first taught as a police officer is presence. That's the first thing that people see. And then they make the determination from there what they want to do. But we have been one of the other thing, or several of the other things that we have talked about in this school was being a positive role model, talking about leadership to our kids to be able to stand up. I got to talk to a kid just the other day actually two young gentlemen at our middle school about standing up for a bullying situation, to saying it's the right thing to do to stand up and tell people it's not okay to bully somebody. Just making that connection there, but that's part of one of our training. We also first responder training when it comes down to if it be a barricade subject, possibly a suicidal subject, or God forbid, any hostage situation or school shooting situations. We also went through de-escalation training, through truancy, some things with truancy that we deal with. Keeping up on drug trends. This is one of the big things that we're dealing with right now, not only in our schools, but across Stark County schools. The good thing about Stark County is our SROs, the program for all of our SROs in the county, we meet once a month to sit down and talk and discuss things that we see in our schools that are trending. Some of the trends with our DAB pens or our THC pens is a big thing right now that we're working on to keep out of our school systems. Going over school safety plans. We deal with the district office in reference to that we review those to make sure that they are where they need to be and that we're going to make the proper choices or have the proper choices available to our teachers and staff should something happen. Crisis management kind of flows in with that. They taught us about trying to make a connection with our students, staff. And this is the SRO program. Even though it's old, it's kind of new here now because there's two of us that are dedicated to the schools, where before we only had one officer that kind of floated between the road and the schools. So making a connection with the staff, making a connection with our guidance counselors is a huge thing. The mental health part is it's exploding, and it's finding out that we do need to have mental health in our schools. And I think we've done a very good job of offering that to some of our students who may need it. But we've also talked about that in our training. One of the last things we did was ALICE training. And it's about keeping our schools safe. Should we have something that goes wrong in our schools, we're able to teach our student or our teachers first, who can then teach our students how to do that.
Right. So ALICE training addresses a crisis situation where there's a perpetrator or a threat, and so basically a lockdown, how you handle that.
Yes.
So the short version of that is run, hide, fight.
Yes.
But ALICE is a little bit longer, and there's more steps in it, but it works. I know that our staff goes through training every year. Our kids go through some review of that as well. So we work through that. And then you also mentioned the mental health piece, which is a big part of what you do and what we do. And one of the things that came out of a situation, unfortunate situation several years ago, was the mental health aspect. And we had in Stark County a contagion of suicide attempts and completions. And we implemented a safety security line that is, we've had one for years, for decades actually, but it wasn't fully developed as we have now. That the Say Something security line, it's from a Sandy Hook network, and students, parents, residents, anyone who has concerns about individuals that about anything can either individual or school safety can call 844-5-SAY-NOW, and our kids know it. We publish it. It's on our website for anonymous reporting. And then if it's what we determine as a life safety tip, it goes to the police department, goes for the dispatch, it goes to, of course, school administrators. And all tips go to school administrators, and they investigate things. But if it's determined a life safety at the switchboard, then they notify a lot. And a lot of those are evening, nighttime, and weekends.
Yes.
And the police department, not only North Canton Police Department, but Stark County Sheriff and some others do investigations to help. And I truly believe we've saved some lives with this. And throughout the county and at North Canton individually, where kids have talked about suicide either to their friends or to their family, or just called themselves anonymously. And to walk me through that process, if you could.
Yep. The first time that we put that into, I believe it was with Sandy Hook, was, I believe, 3 years ago. And I do know that we have it along with several other school districts in Stark County. Our first week, we actually, the system itself, I know worked. We stopped 3 active suicides because somebody took the time to see something and they said something. And what happens with that is it comes in, myself and the other SROs along with administrators, we get a text message. We open it up. We'll see the tip that the tipster has filled out, and we start in by finding out who they're talking about. We get an address sent to our dispatch through our administrators who have the ability to do that very quickly. Our dispatchers do it too, but they're also doing many other things. And if it is a life safety, we get ourselves, either the North Canton Police Department, more likely not, if they're outside of North Canton, the city proper, it will go to the Stark County Sheriff's Office, which we work with very well. They'll send a deputy out to talk with whoever they need to. If there is a need for any crisis intervention, mobile crisis will come out from the crisis center, come out and talk with the kids, come out and talk with the parents, come up with a plan. If it need be, if it's very serious to the point where the parents think that the child should be transported, they could be transported to whatever facility they deem necessary. And then when that's all done, once the crisis has somewhat settled, we will, as SROs, will come into the school and we'll talk to our administrators. We'll also talk to our counselors to let them know that should this child return, that maybe we should just talk with them. Hey, listen, if there's anything that you need to talk with us about, please feel free to come down. Then we can bring into our mental health part of that with ComQuest if we need to set up for them to start going through ComQuest, which is a very, it's very cool to have it on campus. That keeps letting the parents know that they don't have to come in to pick up their children to take them to some other center. They can do it right on campus. And it's handled through insurance purposes and things of that nature. And that's all written out with some things that they can send home with paperwork. But the Sandy Hook has definitely 100% helped. And I know not only here in North Canton, but other districts as well, as I've talked to other SROs about it.
Yeah, schools in Ohio are required to have a safety hotline. We chose, and most other, as you said, most other school districts in Stark County have gone with the Sandy Hook Promise and the Safe Schools report line, and it works. We know it works. It involves the right people, as you mentioned, district administrators, police, guidance counselors are involved, and also the mental health the counselors that we have in each building has been fantastic to work with, and a kind of a true team approach to students in need. Mm-hmm. The unique thing about the Say Something piece, and the part that I want to talk about, and you touched on it a minute there, both the mental health side and then also the safety piece on the drug piece, is what can parents do, what can kids do if they see a student who's struggling, or a friend, or anybody that's struggling, or a parent has questions. What can they do, and what's our best safety feature, I guess, is what's the best thing we can do as individuals to keep our schools safe and to keep our kids safe and healthy?
Now, it's pretty much like it says, if you see something, say something. Whether it be, if you feel that it wants to be anonymous, obviously you can go through the see something, say something. If a kiddo is in school and they see something's not right, ask to speak with a teacher that can directly then go and direct them where they need to go, whether it be to an administrator, to the counselor, to a guidance counselor that's in the school. If it is outside of school, if you don't feel comfortable calling see something, say something, calling our police department is a way to be able to, we can come over, our guys are, the guys are on the road, will know to do what they need to do at that point in time, but they'll also let us know as SRO so we can follow up later on. The biggest thing is, don't feel that, well, maybe somebody else may do it. If you see something, it truly takes a village to raise every one of our 4,300 kids. And saying something that, if you see that they're struggling, and people struggle, even this time of year. Unfortunately, Ohio we're blessed with sun today, but this is the first time we've seen sun since, I believe, Christmas Eve. And some people get depressed over that. So something even as little as that, being able to say something so that we can get the ball rolling. We're lucky here in North Canton that we have a great staff that's able to, they care. They want to reach out to help people. And that would be, my biggest thing would be, if you see something, say something. You've been given numerous reasons or places to go, rather, whether it be the police department, whether it be school, Even if it's a parent who feels, well, maybe it's not the police to call the school, leave a message with one of the principals. They'll be able to do what they need to do to get that kiddo, or even if it ends up being an adult, our mobile crisis center, or the people that run the mobile crisis, are really good at what they do, and they can come straight to your house if they need to. We use them quite a bit on the road as police officers, and we use them in the school as well.
Right. Yeah. The Say Something system is effective for not only school issues but family issues,
Yes,
and so on. And we get lots of folks involved, not just school people. You mentioned going back to the drug issues of today in Stark County and across Ohio and our nation. You mentioned the THC pens and those kind of things. Those are, help me understand for our listeners what those are. Those are vape pens. Cigarettes used to be the big problem in schools, right? Mm-hmm. Smoking in the bathroom and that kind of stuff back from our days. But today they're vape pens, and these vapor pens are able to hold anything, not just flavored fruit flavors and that kind of stuff on the vapor piece, but they also hold other things. And how would a parent tell the difference of what's in those pens or not?
Good question. The vape pens themselves, there's several different types of them. The first one it's self-contained. Those are usually nicotine pens, and those come from anywhere from 1, I think it's milligram, up to, it could be 15 to 20 milligrams of nicotine. The vape pen was made to help people get off of smoking the actual cigarette. And it would slowly bring them down to where they would get down to zero nicotine, to where they could quit. And when they first came out, they were huge machines. They could be recharged electronically. Those are pretty much obsolete now. Now you can find them they're called Juuls. You can see them on gas stations on the pump. They actually run their advertisements there. There's another type of pen out there too that you can change the cartridge. You buy a cartridge, you want a certain flavor, you buy it, you screw it into the pen, you hit a button, it heats it up, and you can ingest it. The difference between nicotine and THC is if you turn it upside down, and it's like molasses on a winter morning, and it takes forever to drain down, that's more likely than not going to be a THC pen, which is illegal. If you take the nicotine, if it's a nicotine one, you turn it upside down, it's going to move very quickly, almost like grains of sand. It'll move very quickly. So those are the ways that we here as a police department, those are the ways we determine which one they are, just by honestly asking. Some kiddos have no idea what they have. They know that they feel different when they smoke it. It is a crime. I mean, it's a drug. It's part of the marijuana. It's I'm not even going to try to say it. It's tetrachlora.
Illegal.
Yes, it's illegal. Yes. But what we do, just to go very quickly with that, what we do is we send it to our crime lab. The crime lab will test it and bring it back. If we find out that it has THC in it, we'll make the appropriate charges. It's like bringing a joint to school, only it's in liquid form.
Right. So all vape pens are not to be permitted on school property, and none of them are good for you. No matter what some of our kids tell our parents, they're not good for you, especially when you put some other stuff in them that like THC and those kind of things. So that's
the other thing too is you brought up about the different flavors. Some of these, if you go to a vape shop, and you'll see them all over. Some of those vapes, it looks like they're produced in some factory somewhere. That's not always the case. Those containers are easily bought. They can make with the technology out there right now, they can make their own labels to go on them, and they can put whatever they want in them. So you have to be very cautious when you're going to. It's very easy to put the wrong thing in there and sell it as something else.
Vape pens in general are not a good idea for adolescents in any way. No. better than what a cigarette was.
Correct.
In any way. So anyways, thanks for sharing that. And those vape pens, they can look like a USB stick. They can look like a regular Bic pen. They can take many different forms, very small and so on. So, we do the program occasionally at North Canton, the in plain sight program, or I know you do some training for parents about what to look for. Yes. If some things. So it's a matter of people talking, and kids talking to their parents, and parents talking to their kids, especially about the risks and the dangers of nicotine and certainly other drugs and so on. So thanks for that information. We talked about what kids can do, and if you said it takes a village and it takes a lot of eyes, and 4,300 students, and close to 600 staff members. Somebody's got to say something, and usually somebody's talking about school safety or a risk of school safety issues and so on. So that hotline is super important, and we can all, that's our best tool, in my opinion, as a superintendent, is that somebody says something, and we can't wait for the incident to happen and then react. It's always better to prevent a problem than clean up a mess of any kind. And we want our kids and our parents to be able to speak up and say something prior. If they hear something, we'd rather hear a rumor and address it than nobody say something and have it come true. So one of the things that I mentioned at the last school board meeting and so on, and occasionally, is about home weapons and those kind of things. And what are some pointers for parents that may have weapons in the home and are hunters or have a firearm in the home? What are some things that parents can do to make sure they keep those secured?
Now, the biggest thing that I find with that is education. We come down, if you do have guns that are in your home, as a police officer, when I go home, I unload my weapon every day and I put it away in a safe. And it's locked. I have grandkids that come over. They know that I'm a police officer, and they're actually their father is a police officer as well. So they have been around guns all their lives. Some people have never been around guns, and with the way the world is changing, some have gone out and purchased some guns. 2 real quick tips that I tell people: always treat a gun as if it's loaded. Always treat a gun as if it's loaded, and you never put the finger on the trigger unless you plan to use it. I see a lot of things in movies and on the news where people take the weapon and put the finger immediately on the trigger. And I'm screaming. My wife hates it when I do it, but I'm screaming for them to keep their fingers.
We certainly don't want to rely on TV for our gun safety tips, do we?
Correct. No. However, my suggestion would be there are quality gun locks that are out there that you can purchase at any one of your gun shops. Safes as well. You don't have to purchase one of those big ones. They have really good technology with some of these that you can put a fingerprint on it, handprint on it to lock it or to open it. But to keep it locked, make it difficult to get to is the biggest thing. And then again, educate. If you bring a gun into the home, sit down and talk about it. This is something that could take somebody's life. We spend 50 hours driving. When a kid takes a driving test, he or she has to take 50 hours to drive on the road. Take those 50 hours and turn around and talk about gun safety as well. This is something that is very dangerous. I've been to numerous places where people who have said they've owned guns for their whole lives and end up doing an accidental discharge, harming themselves or somebody else because they felt so comfortable, but they didn't take the simple steps. Make sure that gun's unloaded, check it twice, and always keep the finger off the trigger. Yep.
And know where they're at.
Yes.
Always, and know they're secure in your home. And,
yes.
And check on them. Sometimes parents say, gosh, I've had a gun, somewhere in the house, and it's been there for years and not been touched, not been looked at. Well, make sure you know it's there and verify it so it's not stolen or used in some other way. So, yeah, appreciate that. We have great kids, great families in our district, and you talk about those 4,300 kids, and the all the way from the short ones to the tall ones, and we have a lot of fun. And I know they respect you and see you as a resource in our district and with our kids. What about classes? Do you go into classrooms, and what kind of educational programs that you're able to offer and have done with not only large group but small groups in our district?
When we first started, we were spending a lot of times just popping into classrooms and things of that nature, just to let them know, hey, we're in the building now and we're here to see you. And it took a little bit of time, but we do get teachers that will come and ask, can you stop in at this time? We're going to be talking about this. Some of that happens here at the high school with government classes when they're going over certain laws and things of that nature. I was actually up in Greentown today. Happened to stop into a classroom. They were talking about drones and about the positives and negatives of them. And I got to tell the kids that we use drones real life in police force and police and fire, whether it be to try to find somebody or to get a better picture of something above and things of that nature. So being able to stop in and see our kids, talk with them in the classrooms, just bring a real world from outside in that, this is what we do. I do know that I believe the state has talked about, I'm not 100% sure on this, about talking about having a class for driving before the kiddos actually start driving when they're 16. Ford actually came out with a huge thing I got last year. I'm still reviewing it. It's a lot, but it's something that I may want to look into putting Officer Ty and myself may look to putting into kids that are getting ready to turn 16 and getting ready to go on the road. What happens if I do get pulled over? Okay, you see everything that's on the news, and they always show the negative. They never show a positive. How do you have a good relationship with that officer from the get-go? And it's something we could have a good idea of teaching those kids how to do that. But we've been involved in, like I said, going into government classes, going into law classes. I do teach Alice for some of our kiddos that go outside of the school to go to different buildings or different agencies to where Alice would be used if they go to a different school or for nursing or things of that nature. So we'll teach Alice as well.
Great, good. I know our teachers appreciate having you as a resource, school resource officer, a resource for some of their curriculum pieces and everything from science classes to some of the government pieces, but all the way down through our elementaries and, stranger danger and those kind of things and safety, walking home or riding home or getting off the bus or weekends. So we appreciate the partnership with North Canton City Police. We appreciate your service, certainly to our community and to our schools. Anything else you want to share with our listeners about school safety or any of the school resource officer programs?
I think the biggest thing that right now is social media and being responsible with social media. Taking a little bit of time to talk with your kids, sit down, whether it be over coffee. I know a lot of our kids love Starbucks. Shameless plug for Starbucks. But to go out and maybe take a trip out there to sit down at your favorite coffee shop or wherever it may be and just talk about social media and talk about the responsibility of having that phone and the damage that it can do. We deal with a lot of it every day as far as cyberbullying and being able to say something to somebody that's not sitting right across from you, but that may be in a different school, maybe down the block, maybe at home, whatever it may be. Understand that those things we still look into, and we have a pretty good ability to find out who it is. I know some things, some of the social media sites where they say it goes away right away. Well, I'm going to tell you as a law enforcement officer, it doesn't. We have a way to find out who sent what and where they sent it to. So having that conversation with your kiddos and letting them know that, things that they do in private may affect somebody else. Just taking your time to talk with your kids is a good thing.
Yep. taking your time to talk to your kids about everything, but social media, certainly, if you have a student or a young one that has a phone, there's a responsibility factor to know not only what they're looking at. We don't want to just turn kids to the World Wide Web, which basically you have on a phone, of anything and everything with no filters and so on those phones, and not only to consume whatever's out there in the world that they may or may not be looking at, but also what they're sending out. So that's, conversation, relationships as parents and their kids, not only as teachers and students, but also school resource officers and students and staff. So we appreciate you very much. I can't reiterate enough how important our school safety hotline is. The say something, that's 844-5-SAY-NOW. That's available as on a link on our website, and also the posters around school too, as far as the phone numbers. That's a critical safety piece for us, and we appreciate our students and our staff and our parents that work through that, and our school resource officers. So we thank you very much, Officer Phil, and as known as Officer Phil. I got to be careful. That's Officer Taylor, but you're known as a great resource for us, and we appreciate you, and look forward to seeing you and officer attire around and working with our schools and so on. So
thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll listen to next week's podcast as we celebrate School Board Appreciation Month and talk to school board members about their work and goals to keep North Canton City Schools a special place for our students and families. Appreciate you all. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.